Welcome, you twisted souls known as the Sewer Chatters, to another night of spine-tingling terror brought to you by the Dark Sewer Network. I am Mystery Man, emerging from the fetid shadows to deliver this week's dose of dread straight into your ears. Whether you're huddled in your basement or driving through empty highways, know that you're in good company here among the rats and the forgotten. The network thanks you for your loyalty in these uncertain times. So settle in, dim those lights if you dare, and prepare for what comes next because you're about to listen to Bigfoot Assault. It was the height of the 1950s, an era when the United States government poured resources into unlocking the secrets of the atom, fueled by fears of Soviet superiority and the lingering scars of World War hidden away in a remote corner of the Pacific Northwest's endless forests. Shrouded in perpetual mist and towering evergreens, stood a clandestine research facility there. A team of white-coated scientists pursued Operation Bananorama, a classified initiative to bombard gorillas with varying levels of radiation. Their goal was to understand how primate physiology might withstand the invisible death that could one day rain from the skies in atomic conflict. The air hummed with electricity and the acrid smell of ozone from their experimental chambers. To lure their subjects, the researchers had set out elaborate traps, baited with bunches of overripe bananas, positioned deep in the woods where they believed wild gorillas might roam, though none existed there naturally. One fateful evening, as rain pattered on the canopy, their traps sprang with a metallic clang. Inside the reinforced cage thrashed a creature far stranger than any African ape, a juvenile Bigfoot, its body covered in thick reddish-brown fur, limbs disproportionately long, and eyes holding an intelligence that sent shivers through the capture team. The creature's cries echoed strangely through the trees, almost like a human infant's wail mixed with something deeper and more primal. They tranquilized it heavily and transported the prize back to the lab. Upon arrival at the facility, the sedated baby Bigfoot was wheeled into the brightly lit examination room on a gurney. The scientists gathered around, their excitement palpable as they measured its vitals and marveled at its robust build despite its young age. Notes were taken on its unusual foot structure and dense fur that seemed to repel the cold damp of the lab. Dr. Harlan Voss lit another cigarette, the smoke curling around the creature like a halo of indifference. They prepared the radiation equipment, eager to begin the real work of Operation Bananorama, oblivious to the parental bond they had just severed in the wild. With the creature secured firmly to the cold metal table using reinforced straps, the team initiated the first low-level radiation exposure. The machine whirred to life, bathing the infant in invisible rays while monitors beeped steadily. To their surprise and slight disappointment, there were no immediate signs of burns, nausea, or weakness. The baby Bigfoot's eyes fluttered open briefly, fixing the men with a gaze that seemed too knowing for an animal. Geiger counters clicked rhythmically, but the subject remained resilient. Dr. Voss ordered the data logged and prepared for the next phase. His voice steady, but his hands trembling slightly from the thrill or the fear of the unknown. Frustrated by the lack of dramatic results, the scientists decided to push the boundaries further. They increased the radiation dosage incrementally at first, then in larger jumps that would have been lethal to any known primate. Hours turned into days as they exposed the baby repeatedly. Instead of succumbing, the creature appeared to adapt, its movements growing stronger even under sedation. A strange, faint glow began to emanate from its fur in the darkened corners of the room, unnoticed at first amid the bright lab lights. The team attributed it to some phosphorescent reaction and pressed on, their scientific curiosity overriding any sense of caution or ethics in their pursuit of breakthrough data. Unbeknownst to the humans in their concrete tomb, the father Bigfoot had begun his relentless search. The loss of his child stirred a deep, primal fury within the ancient being. He followed the scent trail through the undergrowth, over fallen logs and across streams. his massive form moving with surprising stealth for his size. The chemical odors from the lab grew stronger, mixed with the metallic scent of fear and the unique signature of radiation that burned his sensitive nose. With each step closer, his rage built like a gathering storm, claws flexing, muscles coiling for the confrontation ahead. The forest seemed to hold its breath as he approached the source of his pain. The daddy Bigfoot reached the outer defenses under a starless sky. The chain-link fence posed no obstacle. He tore through it with ease, the links snapping like dry twigs. Warning sirens pierced the night air, rousing the night shift from their routines. The first responder, a young guard, rushed out clutching his flashlight and pistol. He had no time to react before the beast was upon him. In a display of raw power, the Bigfoot lifted the guard high and folded his body upon itself with a series of wet cracks and tears, inverting the man into a nightmarish sculpture of broken limbs and exposed insides that slumped to the ground in a pool of spreading blood. Ignoring the blaring alarms, the Bigfoot crashed through the main doors into the sterile corridors. A scientist in a lab coat froze in terror before attempting to run. The creature caught him mid-stride, plunging a clawed hand deep into his chest cavity. With a sickening pull, it extracted the still-beating heart, holding it aloft for a moment like a trophy before crushing it into a bloody pulp that dripped between its fingers. The body collapsed in a heap. Another man, emboldened by panic, drew his sidearm and fired several rounds. The Bigfoot grabbed him by the legs and used him as a living hammer, bashing his head against the wall until it exploded in a shower of bone fragments and brain tissue. The slaughter continued as the Bigfoot rampaged through the lab's heart. He ripped open another door and found a technician cowering. Seizing the man, he forced his head down onto a stand of sharp instruments and broken glass from overturned equipment, impaling the face and throat in multiple places. Blood and fluids mixed with the radioactive solutions in a toxic mess. Nearby, a senior researcher had his arms and legs wrenched from their sockets one by one, the joints popping loudly like fireworks. The Bigfoot then used one of the torn limbs to club the remaining conscious victims, turning the once orderly lab into a charnel house of creative brutality that no textbook could have prepared them for. The air was now a fog of death, filled with moans, the drip of blood, and the whine of damaged equipment. The Bigfoot showed no mercy, cornering the last few in the radiation wing. He grabbed two at once, slamming their skulls together with devastating force, their heads merging in a grotesque fusion of shattered bone and mingled gray matter. Their bodies twitched briefly before going still. A final attempt at resistance came from a man with a fire extinguisher. It was swatted away effortlessly. The Bigfoot's eyes burned with purpose as he headed toward the containment area, leaving a trail of devastation that would haunt any survivors for the rest of their short lives. The daddy Bigfoot located the room where his baby was held. The infant, now visibly glowing with a soft green luminescence from the accumulated radiation, stirred weakly. With careful strength, the father tore away the straps and gathered his child into his protective embrace. The baby nuzzled against the familiar fur, safe at last, as they turned to depart. One last scientist lunged from hiding with a desperate injection. The Bigfoot caught the man's wrist, snapped it like a twig, and then flung him bodily through the reinforced glass of an observation window. The man tumbled outside, landing hard among the debris and shadows. With his offspring secure, the Bigfoot made his way out of the blood-soaked facility. The structure groaned around him from the damage inflicted during the assault. No more humans stood in his path. He stepped over fallen bodies and shattered equipment, carrying the glowing baby into the cool night. The forest welcomed them back, the trees parting as if in respect for the ancient guardian. Behind them, the lab's lights flickered and died one by one, plunging the site into darkness broken only by emergency strobes and the faint, unnatural glow receding into the woods. The handful of scientists who had managed to hide or were too injured to move watched from their hiding spots or through broken windows as the father and child disappeared into the impenetrable darkness of the forest. What struck them most was the persistent soft glow emanating from the baby Bigfoot's form, a eerie bioluminescence that made it visible even as it faded into the trees, a permanent mark left by their reckless experiments. The facility was a graveyard of twisted corpses arranged in poses of unimaginable agony, a silent warning etched in flesh and blood. The survivors knew they could never speak of what happened without risking their own lives or sanity. And there you have it, my dear sower chatters, the horrifying account of Bigfoot Osselt. The moral of this tale is clear. When arrogant men in lab coats play God with the children of the wild, tampering with forces like radiation that nature never intended for such experiments, they invite a retribution from the shadows that is swift, brutal, and utterly unstoppable. The innocent suffer, but the guilty are torn asunder in ways that defy description, and the consequences linger like a glowing reminder in the dark that some lines should never be crossed. Wishing each and every one of you a peaceful good night, free from such glowing horrors. Thank you to the Dark Sword Network for allowing me to share this, and a big thanks to Nick the Rat for his unwavering support in bringing these stories to life. Stay safe out there, chatters. Until next time.